1 for 4, that blast in the third inning. And Kenley Jansen with a 1-0. Little pop up here. There's Grissom to make the play. He's got it. And that's the end of the Twins' 12-game win streak. Time to 86 that summer sausage. 9-2 the final.
A great team win today. Cooper Criswell coming out, another fine performance, throwing the ball really well, got out of that big jam with the bases loaded. And then the offense coming alive, scoring 3 on Joe Ryan, who's got good stuff, and then taking care of business against a really good Twins bullpen. It was a great team win today.
Red Sox, obviously winners against the Minnesota Twins yesterday on the road. Final score of that game was 9-2. They snap a 3-game losing streak. So here's the deal this week on the Baseball Hour. First of all, tonight we have a full hour, 617-779-0985. So if you want to talk baseball, now is a good time to do it because, and I know this will hardly be shocking to many of you, but over the next 2 weeks, there will pretty much be a game every night here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Bruins tonight, Celtics tomorrow, Bruins on Wednesday. Then the Bruins come back to Boston for the weekend. In between, the Celtics will play again. The point is this, that because of game programming that we will have on a regular basis, this show will be shortened at a minimum. Some nights won't exist at all. So you'll get an extended Felger and Mavs from 6 to 7 p.m., or from 6 to 6:30, whatever it is. So if you want to talk baseball, now is your opportunity to do it. Again, 617-779-0985. Now, that said, I do want to get to a couple of things from the weekend as it pertains to the Red Sox series against the Minnesota Twins. And I think that what Alex Cora said after this game, and again, yesterday was a 9-2 win, has led me to ponder whether or not things concerning Cora could conceivably change. Now, coming into the season, Alex Cora was entering the final year of his contract. There were no negotiations to extend him. I think Cora wants out. I think he's been unhappy here. He doesn't feel like there has been a commitment to winning by the Red Sox. And frankly, I think he's right. Boston has turned into a 4A team for the most part. And all the decisions that have been made, call it over the past 3 years, have really been ones that place the long term ahead of the short. There was no urgency to win. There was little or no emphasis, particularly under Chaim Bloom, placed on the success of the big league team. The Red Sox would have guys on the field who weren't ready for the job or the challenge of playing in a big market in the big leagues, and they left them there because Chaim Bloom wanted them to develop in the big leagues as opposed to the minor leagues, which frankly I think was a mistake. Now, this year, it feels like some of these guys have actually developed. And the Red Sox, I would say, have played what I would call, Jimmy, how would you describe the way the Red Sox have played so far? Can we say functional baseball? Is that a fair assessment? The very beginning was bad. It was sloppy. But would we say overall that they are a half-decent major league team?
They are functional, and I find them interesting and at times fun to watch.
Okay. And again, when I say functional, don't confuse functional with good or great. Just how about simply not embarrassing?
They're respectable.
Okay. Respectable is a good word, too. Thank you, Jimmy. They're not embarrassing. So, for example, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Twins. But the first 2 games were low scoring. They were close. In theory, they were in it. Yesterday, they opened it up. They won 9-2. They had gone about a week without hitting a home run until yesterday when Ceddanne Rafaela hit one. But you get the idea. A lot of the real stupidity has been cleaned up. The Red Sox have what I would call representative players defensively at most positions on the diamond, if not all of them. Representative. In other words, there's no Christian Arroyo in right field. There's no, who can I say at first base, Jimmy? Franchi Cordero. You get the idea. No hacks out there. And that is a low bar.
Well, ish.
Okay, who are you talking about?
Well, let's see how this Vaughn Grissom plays second base.
Okay, good thing you brought him up. We'll get to him in just a bit. I do want to get to Vaughn Grissom. But the Red Sox dropped 2 out of 3 in Minnesota. They left Fenway Park having won 4 out of 6. And yet, I think the 2 most interesting comments that have come from Alex Cora in the last week really have come on days where the team has lost. So let's start with yesterday. After the game, Cora was asked about the weekend, the game, etc. Here's what he said.
Tough weekend with basically 3 bullpen games in 4 days, and some guys became big leaguers this weekend. Like they had to pitch them back to back. These are the cool ones. I know we lost 2 out of 3, but we play good baseball throughout. But as a manager, these are very gratifying because you use everybody. You start planning Sunday, on Saturday, midway through the game, and how we're gonna accomplish this. And losing 2 out of 3 sucks here, but winning this one is very, very gratifying. It took a total team effort. Coaches did an outstanding job, and nice, a happy flight, and be ready for Atlanta.
So now many of you know the answer to this question, but work with me a little bit. Work with me a little bit and play along. Alex Cora was brought here in 2018 to win a World Series. That's why Alex Cora was brought in to manage the Red Sox. They had a talented team that they had spent on through the nose. Entering 2018, they had the highest payroll in the game, and yet they had a habit of getting into the postseason at that stage and crapping out. It happened to them in 2016. It happened to them again in 2017. So they changed managers. They brought in Cora. And if you remember that season, aside from winning 108 games in the regular season and then 11 more to win the World Series, players routinely said Cora was their confidence. Cora said when he took the job that he wanted to show the Red Sox how good they were, that they didn't realize how good they were. So Cora's job was to get them over the top, to win the World Series, get the most out of the roster, and it was a talented roster. Again, back then, they had the number 1 payroll in the game. Cora was brought in to win a championship or championships, plural. Now here we are, 6 years later. The Red Sox still feel like a team in transition. They have either journeymen or budding young players on the field, some of whom aren't all that young, but we can call them youngish. Jarren Duran, whoever. Take your pick among the 27-year-olds. Tanner Houck's another one. Now those guys are basically playing 500 baseball. They lose 2 out of 3 in Minnesota, and Alex Cora, who was brought in to win a championship, is telling you that these are the ones that are gratifying as a manager when you win on the finale of a series to avoid a sweep and you have to use just about everybody on the roster. The same guy who was brought in to win championships is now celebrating wins like yesterday. And I'm not telling you he shouldn't. The circumstances have changed. But you tell me, if these were the Red Sox of a year ago, would Alex Cora have sounded as happy as he did yesterday, or as content? And I'm not telling you he's thrilled or ordering parades or anything of the like, but he was content. He took the good out of it. It was an optimistic, positive point of view. As opposed to a year ago, when a guy like Pablo Reyes was acquired, and Cora was asked about him and said, well, I don't think he's an everyday player. The tone was completely different. Totally, completely, 100% different. And this comes after just a few days ago, at the end of a homestand, where again, the Red Sox were 4-1 on the homestand. They lost the finale to the, was it the Giants or the Cubs? It was the Giants. They lost the finale to the Giants on getaway day. And Cora, again, after a loss, had an exchange with a reporter where the reporter started to say, I know you lost today, but it was a good homestand.
It was a great homestand.
Bingo. Cora cut off the reporter just as Jimmy had him cut me off right there. Excellent work, Jimmy.
It was a great homestand.
The reporter said, but you had a good homestand. Cora said, it was a great homestand.
It was a great homestand.
And then went on to say, We played some good teams. We played some good baseball. So the bottom line is that over the last 9 games against what I would call representative teams in Major League Baseball, the Cubs, the Giants, and now the Twins, who were the hottest team in the sport going into the weekend, and after the first 2 games had won 12 in a row, the Red Sox went 5-4 with a makeshift lineup and pitching staff for the most part. Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford pitched the first 2 games, but it was a lot of relievers in there. And Alex Cora sounds content. The Red Sox look respectable, decent, hanging in there against better competition, even if they're not winning. So my question is now this. Is there any chance they can convince him to stay? And do you as a fan, those of you who are watching the team and paying attention, because there's obviously a lot going on in the world of Boston sports at the moment. I've said this a million times. April is the busiest time of the year. It's the busiest month on the calendar. The spring in general, May as well. And between the Bruins advancing now in the playoffs, the Celtics advancing in the playoffs, the Red Sox, and not to mention the Patriots draft and the future of that football organization and the Tom Brady roast, there's never a shortage of material this spring. But for those of you who have watched and who have paid attention, is there any chance you want Cora back? Is there any chance he would want to come back if the Red Sox get to the end of this year, this continues, and they're in position next year to contend? What are they going to do with manager? Do they have to start over again? Or is there a way to pay Alex Cora, convince him to stay, because both he and the organization are now back where they were in 2018, which is they need someone to take them and put them over the top. And I don't know if they're going to be a World Series caliber team next year or not. I'm just telling you, the pitching has been good. They got some young guys coming. For the first time in a long time, you can see the things starting to come together, and the whole mindset and attitude inside that clubhouse feels different to me. Not that I've been in there, but I'm judging by how Cora says or speaks. To me, there's a big difference in the guy's attitude. For the better. For the better. 617-779-0985. See a couple of you on the line already. We'll get to your calls when we come back.
McGuire's taken off. Here's the throw down to third, and he is going to be out at third base. Now he is asking for a review here. Trying to swim his way into the bag. He's maintaining he got in there. And the Red Sox do want to review this play.
Yeah, watch the swim move right here. I mean, the throw beats him by a lot. But watch him slide. He's safe. He is absolutely safe. He pulls that left hand back out of the way and gets tagged in the chest, but after his right hand gets to the bat.
Boston is challenging the out call at third base.
Now, he was dead to rights. He got a really good walking lead and got a good jump, but just not fast enough. And in this situation, in the tie ball game, I know you want to get to third base with one out, so it's easier to get that run scored, but it's also easy to run into an out over there if you don't have a lot of speed.
Watching on the big board here, and everybody sees it. He definitely got his hand in there.
Yeah, it was a great slide. I mean, he saved himself big time.
After review, the call on field is overturned. The runner is safe. Boston will retain their challenge.
So the Red Sox have a runner at third in Reese McGuire.
In the fifth inning, Reese McGuire on second base. Reese McGuire, backup catcher, tries to steal third with one out. Now, again, you heard the play there. Reese McGuire tries to steal third, one out, gets thrown out, but tremendous slide. Used a swim move, got his hand in there, and ended up being safe on a reversal. Great. He still shouldn't have run. Stealing third base now, that's what we're going to do. This is the same kind of crap that Tristan Casas pulled a couple of weeks ago before he got hurt. It got completely got gunned down with nobody out. It was a stupid play, and this one was dumb too. So he got away with it. That doesn't mean it was a smart play. If it's Jarren Duran and he makes it in easy because the pitcher's not paying attention to him, I'll give him credit for it. Reese McGuire doing the swim move on a slide and barely avoiding the tag, too close for my taste. Too close. Big mistake. And good for Will Middlebrooks for actually making the point. It's a risky play. Not worth it. Ceddanne Raphael ended up hitting a 2-run homer. The Red Sox go up 3-1. They win the game 9-2. But just to put it into context, if the runner is off base, does Raphael get pitched the same way? Even if he homers, it's 2-1, not 3-1. Like, you cost your team a run potentially. I just thought that. Now, again, this type of stuff has not happened all the time. And it's easy to look past this one because McGuire was safe. It doesn't make it a good play. And there is no way they gave him the green light to go, or to make the judgment, or that someone from the dugout said, yeah, go. No, he was trying to get to third with less than 2 outs so he could score on a sac fly or a ground out or whatever. The Red Sox haven't been scoring, so they took some chances. I get it. Dumb. But back to Alex Cora, and I also want to get to Vaughn Grissom, which is what Martin in Texas wants to talk about. Go ahead, Martin.
Hey, Tony. I think when you were describing the team earlier, when you said they were functional and not always pretty to look at, but entertaining to watch, that's the perfect description of Vaughn Grissom's throwing motion that a lot of people were making fun of or poking fun at during the broadcast, where he's throwing it like a shortstop throwing to first instead of sidearming it like most second basemen. But when it comes down to it, as long as he's executing the out, I don't think it really matters. And secondly, I was wondering how much more time, because I don't pay that much attention to the minor leagues, do you think that it's going to take for Meyer and those guys to move up to AAA?
So, Martin, I can't speak for the guys in the minors. They're going to need a little more time, a little more success down at AA. But if they rip it up down there, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that they get a promotion, let's call it, in a couple of months. So you're looking at July, maybe beginning of August, somewhere in there. I wouldn't rule that out. Usually, I would say if you're going textbook, you promote a guy a little bit later in the season, give him a chance to get acclimated in that final month. That way he goes into the next year ready to go. And that's sort of the easiest way to think of it. Like, just get the transition out of the way, and then he shows up the next season and he's ready to go. There's no transition period because you've already gone through it. I'll get to Grissom in just a little bit because I do think he is worth touching on given the hype surrounding that deal. And series with the Braves starts tomorrow night. Chris Sale will pitch on Wednesday. You got Grissom in that Chris Sale deal, so I'll give you my preliminary thoughts on him as well. John and Newton. John, go ahead.
Hey, Tony, listen, I've been a Red Sox fan for a long time, and I divided into eras. Eras when I thought I was smarter than baseball ops, and eras when I realized that baseball ops is smarter than me. And Theo was like the first time in my life I was like, oh, these guys are actually smarter than me. I think we have to admit now that baseball ops has done a really good job putting this team together. Andrew Bailey's done a great job. We were all saying they need more starting pitching. Starting pitching's been great. So I think it's entertaining. I'm pleased. And now I kind of trust these guys, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Okay, so I'm not there yet. I'm not going to jump way ahead and tell you that all of a sudden I have this blind faith in Craig-Breslow and the Red Sox baseball operation, especially when they themselves are doing an audit of their entire baseball operation because they want to see how much fat they can trim. Maybe that's purely a money thing, but let's not go too far with it. They're off to a good start. It's a little more than 30 games. They've played half decent. They've pitched very well, but it's hardly been perfect. Again, all I will tell you at this point is I do feel for the first time in a long time that it's starting to come together a little bit. So the pitching has been good. Some of these guys are on the younger side. Crawford looks like he's a big league pitcher. Tanner Houck looks like a borderline ace, if not an ace entirely. And Bayo's been out. Pavetta's coming back on Wednesday night. Whitlock, in theory, will be back at some point. Who the hell knows? So we'll see if they can keep it together. And positionally, Kyle Teal, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, in theory, you should start to see them by within a year. Whether that's early next season, there's maybe a glimmer or a peak at the end of this year. If somebody really rips it up down there in AA, it's possible. I'm not going too far with it. Not yet. And listen, again, let me make this part clear. The Red Sox should not be in this position. This has taken way too long. It hasn't gone right, and they owe you more. So they should be better than they are. They're in the top half of teams in Major League Baseball right now. I think they're the 13th best team based on one-loss record. They should be in the top 5. So let's not go throwing them parades just because they don't suck or completely suck. It's better than we anticipated. It's still not as good as it should be. But again, given the disaster that was the Bloom era, at least we can look at it and say, okay, maybe it's starting to come together. And I do wonder about Cora. Cora's attitude this year is much, much better, at least right now. A year ago, not so much. So we'll continue with the discussion on Cora. Why is he so content? Is it because... Jimmy Stewart, let me ask you quickly before we go to headlines. If I asked you, why does Cora sound happier than he did a year ago, what's your answer?
He is being heard when he has suggestions about the roster. He is a participant in the process with Craig-Breslow, whereas I don't think he was a participant in the roster building process with Chaim Bloom.
Okay. So interesting. The relationship with Breslow then to this point, Jimmy, you would say is working or not working?
I would say it's working. That's just how it feels. I don't know anything, but this is closer to... So when Dave Dombrowski was the GM, Dave would say, Alex, what do you need? And Alex Cora would say, get me Steve Pearce, get me Nathan Eovaldi, get me help. And Dave Dombrowski would go out and get Alex Cora help for the roster. Chaim Bloom would say, well, that's a good idea, but here's Pablo Reyes. Here's somebody who is somebody else's trash that we can put on our roster. And now this year with Craig Breslow, Alex Cora is getting respectable, professional Major League Baseball players in Garrett Cooper and Dominic Brown and people who can play the position. I also think
you mean Dominic Smith?
He won the positional battle with Rafaela. Rafaela, in this evaluation year for Craig Breslow, was supposed to be the everyday center fielder, but they needed a shortstop because they have a surplus of outfielders. So Cora needed somebody who could field the ball in the infield, and Cora got to be able to put Rafaela at shortstop and figure out the outfield otherwise. So Cora is a participant in the process. Cora is being heard, and I think that's why you hear the happiness in his voice, the happiness in his voice, the joy in his voice.
Yeah, the contentment. I mean, again, he sounds more engaged and more. And Jimmy, at the end of the day, I think you're right. It's a good way to put it.
Last year we're getting, the roster's the roster, and I don't know that Pablo can play every day.
It's not about pointing fingers, right? The roster is the roster, and we have to play better baseball.
The roster is the roster. He said like 3 or 4 times in pre and post game press conferences. Pablo Reyes gets acquired, and 2 days later, it's like, I don't think Pablo can play every day. And you're not getting that this year because Cora's part of the process, which when we're all part of the process, Tony, we all feel better about the job.
Well, you're in control of your own outcome. So that if you lose, you can at least look at it and say, well, I made mistakes. We gave it a shot. It didn't work. But when someone's dumping players on you who suck and you say to him, I need a first baseman, and he gives you Kyle Schwarber, whom we all liked, but he wasn't a first baseman. They still didn't have a first baseman that year. Kyle Schwarber is a DH? Sure. Everybody's happy with that. But when you ask for a first baseman and you get Franchi Cordero, you ask for a backup right fielder and you get Christian Arroyo, how do you expect the manager to be happy? I just think the relationship between Cora and Breslow, I'm just guessing from the outside, based on how Cora sounds and the kinds of players that they're bringing in to fill specific needs, and I mean specifically on the field, defensively more than anything. Nobody can tolerate bad defense. It's maddening. It's maddening. It's embarrassing, frankly.
14-3 when they don't make an error.
Okay, so it's really that simple. They pitch well enough where if they play good defense, they're going to be in every game. At least they have thus far. So I think that he's being heard. That's a good way to put it.
So Tom Warner was actually wrong when he said that they would have won 9 more games if they had been clean fielding. They've won 14 more games this year being a clean fielding team.
Well, so look, again, let's see if it holds up, Jimmy. Got a long way to go yet, but it does feel to me like Craig Breslow, unlike Chaim Bloom, is making moves with the clubhouse in mind as opposed to the future in mind. And I think that's a big difference. We'll get to Vaughn Grissom when we... was on Friday night in that series opener against the Twins. One was on the stolen base. Frankly, he just muffed it. And then the play to first was a dribbler to the right side between where the second baseman would be traditionally positioned and the first baseman, so sort of in the hole between first and second. He came charging into his left. Grissom did, fielded the ball, made the throw to first. You heard Dave O'Brien say there the ball was a little high. And then I noticed even on subsequent plays, the way Grissom throws the ball, to me, feels a little off. And I want to take a better look at it. It's not like I'm breaking down the video and I'm some sort of fielding expert. But I can tell you, just when you watch players throw, there are guys who have very fluid, traditional throwing motions, and then guys who you say, that looks different. In the case of Grissom, I almost feel like he doesn't bring his arm back. It's a little strange. So, there's that sort of classic image of a guy getting ready to throw, and they used to, when you were a little kid, they would tell a kid to turn the ball back like you're letting someone take a bite of an apple, and then, you're extended sort of both ways, glove forward, arm back, and then you come around and you throw the ball. And again, that's sort of like, I'm not caught up in the textbook part of it, but that's sort of the image, okay? This guy almost like starts the ball at his ear. So I'll say short arms it, but by the time he releases it, his elbow and forearm are almost out in front of him. It just looks awkward. And it looks like an error waiting to happen. There was a double play he turned later in the game on Friday night that looked a little more fluid to me. He's clearly an athletic guy, and I will say that in the batter's box, there's some stuff to like. So he got a ball down and in that he absolutely drilled over the weekend. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. I want to say it ended up being a line drive to left field, but the ball was struck well. The pitch was down and in. He got the head of the bat on the ball. It looked good. He looks pretty good in the box, which is consistent with what the scouting reports are on Grissom, that he can hit, and he's a good contact guy. Now, he also has a tendency to, he was asked about this over the weekend, about pimping a home run. He kind of flipped the bat, and the ball was not out of the ballpark. So there's a little bit of drama with him, for lack of a better word. And I saw one of the interviews he did over the weekend where he sounded a little cocky, which, again, is all well and good if he can play, whatever. But I always kind of like the guys who talk with their play rather than their mouths. Those, to me, are always the better guys, the better, more competitive players, and have the right value system and all that stuff. So I'll tell you this. I'm a little worried about Grissom. He's young. He looks like he can hit. I'm worried about him defensively, and I'm worried about his attitude a little bit. I'm not telling you he's a problem. But is he one of these guys who thinks he's great and he still has a lot to learn? This is one of the things that I would keep an eye on. So is he a promising player? Sure. Yes. But I'm not convinced he can play second base. I'm not convinced he can throw. He could be another guy who's a DH. They got him for Chris Sale, so who the hell's going to complain about that? Although Sale is off to a good start with the Braves. Nonetheless, the Red Sox needed a second baseman. For all the talk about the defense and shortstop last year, second base sucked too, maybe worse. It's just not quite as critical a position. So, again, based on 2 days of Grissom, a weekend of Grissom, he's got some work to do, but there's promise there. Let's see how it goes over the course of his season. Ed and Quincy on the Red Sox pitching. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, Maz. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen, they've played almost a quarter of the season. They lead the majors in team ERA at 2.61, 6 shutouts so far. I'm asking you, do you think that they can continue with this pace, or are they going to come back down to earth?
So, Ed, my guess is they're going to come back down to earth. Thanks for the call. I can't imagine they're going to pitch at this level for the entire season. But you know what? As a team, I don't need them to pitch at this level for the entire season. What I need them to do is show me a couple of guys that can handle the workload. A couple. Show me that you have a couple of big league starters in your rotation, and then all of a sudden the whole discussion changes. Now you say, all right, well, you know what? Tanner Houck can be a front-end starter. Brian Bayo can be a front to middle end starter. One guy can be a 1 or a 2. The other guy can be a 2 or a 3. Crawford can pitch in the big leagues. And then now all of a sudden you're on to something. Okay, well, now we got to fill some holes. We don't have to go out and sign 2 aces anymore. Do you remember at the beginning of the offseason that Freudian slip, Craig Breslow was saying at the beginning of the offseason that what they needed to do was potentially sign 2 pitchers. They got 1, and he got hurt and is out for the year. So they ended up getting 0. Lucas Giolito was it. That's it. And again, he's making no contribution. So now for them to be in this spot is actually an enormously pleasant surprise. And Houck has been really good. So I'm stunned by what has taken place with Tanner Houck. Stunned. Because he looked to me like a guy who couldn't throw strikes consistently, had an inconsistent delivery, all of that. Now he's much calmer on the mound, much more compact. He can repeat his delivery. He's constantly in the strike zone. Constantly. Prior to this year, he wasn't. He had a handful of games where he had thrown as many as 61, 62 strikes in a game. This year, he's already done it 5 or 6 times. He's like a completely different guy. So that's a good sign. Now, I can't predict if they're going to stay healthy. Houck has the body more than anybody else. Bayo's not small. He's about 6'1". Houck's 6'5". Whitlock looks brittle. Crawford's not a huge guy either. So if they can stay healthy, can they reproduce the results? If Houck pitches, Houck is the big one to me right now because he's really the only one that, I shouldn't say the only one because Crawford's been there too, but Houck has been consistent. Houck has been good. He had a really bad game against the Angels, but everything else has been pretty good or really good. So if Houck and Bayo, you can come out of this with Houck and Bayo, and then you can fill in your rotation and build a bullpen. And I say build a bullpen because a couple of these guys are up at the end of the year. You got some young guys coming. To me, you can be in the playoffs next year. I don't think you're a playoff team this year, but I think you can be in the playoffs next year. And I know that doesn't do anything for those of you who want to watch now, but I'm trying to be realistic. I think it sucks too. I would like a playoff team now, but I think for the first time in a long time, it's trending in the right direction, at least for the first 30-some-odd games. Peter on the Cape. Peter, go ahead. You got to close your window.
It's closed, Tony. Sorry if you can't hear me. I saw one of those interviews with Grissom, too, this weekend, and I know he had the flu and everything, but he said he was tired a couple of times, and I'm like, dude, you haven't played yet. How can you be tired? But I wanted to talk about Cora. I think he's in a better frame of mind because he knows he's out after this year. And I think he's kind of pumping up his team to show other people, this is what I can do with what I have. And I think the Yankees are going to throw a bundle of money at him. They need a manager like him. They're going to have to sign Soto. He's single-handedly keeping the lineup together. So they're going to have a manager. And I think it's going to be Alex Cora.
So, Peter, astute observation on your part that Cora, it's a contract year. And maybe Cora is doing what Bill Belichick is doing and making it clear to everybody that he's actually a good guy to work with. Not that there was anything really bad that happened here, but let's face it. Chaim Bloom never had a shot with Alex Cora. Never had a chance. It never got off the ground. They were never philosophically on the same page. So maybe Cora now is just making it clear to the rest of baseball, hey, I like to manage. I can have a good attitude. I can feel good about it. And I can get a team to overachieve or better. So I wouldn't rule that out. And again, if that's what he's doing, that's okay. So if he wants to gamble on himself and get himself a big deal, a big contract with an organization that wants to compete for championships, all the power to him. Part of me wonders again if it could still be here. Whether the Red Sox can get good enough this year where Cora elects to stay. I don't think the manager is the end of the world with a major league team, but I think Cora is good at it. So to me, that would be a pleasant surprise. I'm not betting on it. I still think Cora wants out, but there's been a definite change in his attitude. That's all I'm telling you. With regard to Grissom and the fatigue, we'll get to that when we come back.
High ball of decent depth could bring in the run. Here's the 3-2. And a high fly ball left field deep. Kirilloff backing up. And that ball gets out, a home run. And for the first time in a week, the Red Sox go yard. Cedar Rafaela with number 3. And the Sox lead it 3-1 in Minnesota.
What an adjustment by the kid as well. You saw him late on several fastballs to his first couple at bats. This one he gets down in the zone, right? It's hard to catch up to the one at the top. He's having issues with that. He's getting a little long. Gets this one down in the zone and absolutely hammers it.
Could have been a strike. It was outside. It was a ball, but with Angel Hernandez by the plate, behind the plate, who the hell knows? So, yeah, well, he had a good at-bat on that home run. That's all. Just something to keep an eye on. Again, I doubt whether Rafaela can hit. And I say doubt it. I'm not telling you who can. I have doubts, is what I mean. And I did want to get back quickly to Vaughn Grissom. There's a caller who said that Grissom said he was fatigued, couldn't understand why. Grissom missed. His debut was pushed back 4 or 5 days because of the flu. Jimmy, did you see the stories that Vaughn Grissom lost 14 pounds because of the flu?
I did see that.
Can I call bullcrap?
Not necessarily. It depends on how much water weight he's carrying.
14 pounds. 14 pounds. A guy like that, and he's in good shape. A kid like that, he lost 14 pounds.
I'm a tub of goo. I lose weight when I get sick all the time. And yes, it's 14 to 15 pounds.
Okay, Jimmy, with all the love in my heart, the key operative phrase there is tub of goo.
I know. That's why I said it.
So I can see how you might be able to lose 14 pounds. Vaughn Grissom, no way. Bull crap. I call bull crap. 5 pounds? Maybe. 14? What did he give birth? He have a freaking baby last week? Is that what happened?
I have lines that are only appropriate for Netflix roasts of Tom Brady.
Holy crap, 14 pounds. My ass. He lost 14 pounds. What a load of crap that is.
14-pound crap.
I saw that and went, come on. 14 pounds, a 24-year-old kid with the flu? Stop. We got to dramatize the story. Yeah, he had the flu. He lost 14 pounds. 14 pounds maybe at a strip joint in London. That would be pretty easy. 14 pounds? Cut the crap, please. Joe Murray coming up next. He's got you for the next half hour. Then I keep saying Celtics. The Bruins played so recently. I keep thinking in my head the Celtics are playing tonight. It's the Bruins. So Joe Murray takes you into Bruins pregame, followed by Bruins-Panthers game 1 right here on 98.5. Majority's got your headlines. We'll catch you tomorrow.
WBCFM 91 from the Town Fair Tire Studios, the home of the Patriots, the Celts, the Revs, and the Bruins.